And yeah.
All right, Tess, I'm going to hand it off to you.
A little bit better with light. Okay. Thank you, Colby.
Thanks, Tess.
All right. Are we ready?
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Colby, our great president. Hooray. Okay.
I'll listen in for a minute or two, and then I'm going to go listen in for a second. And then
okay, very good. So I'm calling this meeting to order. Good evening, everybody. It's 6:32 p.m. My name is Tess Taylor. I'm the chair of the Governmental Affairs Committee for the Greater Toluca Lake Neighborhood Council. We have a new committee member, but before I introduce him, a little bit of housekeeping. We're first going to take roll, and that will include our newest committee member. So let me pull up my Word document so that I can make changes to it. Kelly Cole.
Here.
Sean Besharati. Okay, Sean, let's see, is he, oh, here he is. He is here. I'm going to promote him to panelist. Okay, I've just promoted him. There he is. Good. All right, so Sean is here. Sean, we're just taking roll.
Present.
Excellent. Thank you. Ren Blight. Appears to be here, but possibly muted. Your nostrils are here. You're muted, Ren. Should we count you absent on a technicality? No. All right. Well, Ren is there we are. You're
okay,
unmuted.
does that work?
That's good. Okay, so Ren
Okay,
is
I'm here.
definitely here. Jonathan Gregory.
Here.
Excellent. Logan Dalton.
Here.
Excellent. And I am most definitely here. So we have a full house. Thank you very much. The public, members of the public are in attendance. We have 4 members of the public. We have phone number ending in 452. We have a couple people who may be speaking tonight. And great. So let's go to the meeting minutes. Motion to approve the GTLNC February 7th, 2023 Governmental Affairs Committee minutes. May I have a first?
Sean.
Sean, second?
Jonathan.
Kelly, very good. All right. Any comments on the minutes? Jonathan, go ahead.
Thank you. Tess, I would like to request that you add to the minutes in the area that discusses the banners, the information that it was the first time that I learned it in questioning the composition of this committee, working on the banner project, that it was comprised of the Toluca Lake Homeowners Association, the Toluca Lake Gardens Club, and the Chamber of Commerce.
Okay.
And they were the components of the committee.
Actually, if I may, that was misinformation. I talked about the people who were forming up the committee, but they weren't representatives of those organizations. They had set the committee up as an ad hoc thing. The reason I mentioned the organizations that they belong to is that they, I wanted to let people know that they were active in the Toluca Lake area, had been for a number of years, and were connected with, a wide range of people in the area. And, but they were not representing their organizations either then or now. They've set this up as an ad hoc organization to do the banners. And they've moved along with it quite well, I think. But anyway, I'm sorry if if people misunderstood what I was saying. I don't think I was clear probably, but they were not representing those organizations either at that time or subsequently. So it's really just an ad hoc organization that's come about to do the banners.
Jonathan?
Yes, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because we're not in the subject matter of the banners, we're only in the subject matter of the minutes. The minutes are supposed to reflect what was said in the meeting. So I'm requesting that you have the minutes. Rand, I'm not attempting to be deceptive or anything. I'm understanding that you're saying it was a mistake. We'll need to.
A misunderstanding. I don't know that it was a mistake because it wasn't wrong. Those people are members of those organizations, but the banner program itself was not created by those organizations.
Well, if I may, so Ren, Jonathan is correct. The minutes reflect what was discussed at the meeting. Whatever happened subsequently is corrected or it's noted to be a misunderstanding, that's fine. And that can be reflected in the minutes of this meeting. Kelly, what was your recollection? You're muted, Kelly. Go ahead.
My recollection is what Jonathan is saying, and I do agree that minutes are supposed to be a record of what was discussed, not the clarification, which might be legitimate, but should probably go later in the meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Jonathan.
Tess, if I may.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Ren, I'm supposed to address Tess, so this is for Ren, of course. I'm very respectful that if there's a misunderstanding, I want it to be clarified. Now is not the moment.
Okay.
But
fine.
Ren, no,
Later.
not fine, but we need to work together to find that moment because I'm very, very confused, obviously. Probably some other people are too, but certainly I can only speak to myself. I'm very confused about it. So we'll need to identify a moment either in this meeting or another meeting where it can be explained so that we have clarity. Thanks.
Okay, so then Jonathan, you want, give me the language, you want the three organizations noted, and can you tell me where in the minutes you want that added?
I'm looking at, it says.
Page 2 of 3.
In the draft minutes, yeah, we're on page, I guess it's page 2. There's a paragraph that starts out discussion of Toluca Lake.
Yes.
Okay. I would just say go to the very bottom of it and add it in. I don't really care where it is.
Okay, and so add discussion of involvement of X, Y, and Z associations, right?
No, it would just say it was you could say Ren. I mean, this is what Ren said. So Ren said that the components of the committee working on the banner project is the three organizations.
Okay.
I don't think adding misinformation into the minutes is useful. So I would vote against that.
Well, we can go back and listen to exactly what was said, but I do agree with Jonathan that the minutes are a reflection of what was said and discussed at the time, even if it's clarified and corrected later or updated. So
I think we've agreed that we don't do verbatim minutes.
That's
in
fine.
This case, when it's something that's that was not true, I don't know why it needs to be in the minutes.
Okay.
But if you guys insist on it, fine. I'll vote against the minutes and we'll move forward.
Okay.
Let's go ahead.
Okay, discussion of components, discussion of organizations working on the banner, on the Toluca Lake Banner project included Toluca Lake Homeowners Association, Toluca Lake Garden Club, and Toluca Lake Chamber of Commerce, correct?
I think the word is the composition of the committee, not component.
Discussion of composition of organizations working on the banner
Composition
project.
of the
The
committee,
organizations were not working on it. Individuals who belong to those organizations were working on it. I'd be happy to have that in the minutes if you want, but
Okay,
to imply
let me-
that I said those
Okay, I'm
organizations were
taking
working
your,
on it.
Ren,
is-
I'm taking your name out. Okay, so let me listen first to Jonathan and then we'll come back over to you and we'll vote, okay? So
Okay.
Jonathan.
I think, I
'cause I
agree
want-
with Ren. I agree with Ren. This is not verbatim, but the
Okay.
composition of the committee was identified to be the three organizations.
Okay,
That's all I heard, and I
Okay.
think that's substantive information. And Ren is saying that that's not true now, and I'm confused, but there needs to be a time in the future to discuss it. Thanks.
okay. Okay, so let me read it and see if Jonathan is satisfied. Then I will go to Ren and then I will go to Kelly, okay? Hang on. Identified to be to include. Okay. All right, discussion of composition of committee. Oh, hold on, now I'm confused, hold on.
The
Discussion.
composition of the committee,
Um,
the composition of the committee was discussed to
okay,
be,
hold on. Discussion of composition of the committee working on the banner project, okay? On the banner project.
was
inclu-
discussed to be. the three
Okay.
org-
Included Toluca Lake homeowners, Okay, Ren, over to you.
I don't care. Go ahead.
All right,
Whatever he said.
Kelly, what's your comment?
My comment is just to clarify that while minutes are not verbatim, and in fact, our bylaws state that the minutes should be fairly brief.
Mhm.
Minutes are not subjective. They're objective, an objective record of what was discussed. If what was discussed changes late, if what was discussed, the factual basis of what was discussed is illuminated in a different way later down the road at this meeting, for instance, great, that's fine. That goes into these minutes, but we can't editorialize past minutes. They're just an objective record of what was discussed.
Thank you, Kelly. All right, so with that, are there, we have a couple of raised hands here. So Jonathan, and just so newcomers understand the process, we're going to go to questions and comments from the committee and then to the public. Okay, Jonathan, do you still have a question or did you take your hand down?
I lowered my hand. Thank you.
Okay, so Joanne Rivas, go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, I just kind of wanted to tack on to what Kelly was saying that, yes, it's not verbatim, but this is how committees and, when we're looking back at things, how we see the transparency, accountability and stuff like that. So I agree with what you're doing to make it as accurate as possible. It does not be verbatim, but there has to be a living record, and not change down the road. It is what it is. And if there's a clarification, like Ren said, maybe he, misspoke a bit and realized that the following month, then this month should reflect the new updated, like you don't go back and change past minutes to reflect what he should have said. You leave what was said for that month, and then you come to this month and he can clarify or say, you know what, it was I misspoke, whatever. And then you have, where everything was clarified this month, just for transparency's sake,
Okay, thank you, Joanne. So unless there's further comment, shall we take it to a vote? All right, we will vote on the minutes as amended. All right, Sean, how do you vote? You're muted.
Yes.
Thank you. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
All right. Jonathan, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ren, how do you vote?
No.
Logan, I'm going to abstain you because you're brand new. I think that would be the appropriate thing to do at this point. Would you agree, everybody? All right, so then next month you're going to have a vote, Logan, but I don't think it's, if you haven't reviewed the minutes and you don't know the context, I think it's fair that we have you abstain this time. All right. So let me, all right. Sorry, I'm trying to make sure I've got all these documents open. Okay, so March 7th. Yes, abstain, no. Okay, so that's 4-0 or 4-1-0, and the motion carries. Thank you. All right. So moving right along, first we're going to go to public comment. Then we are going to go to an introduction of our new committee member. And then I'm going to bring in Natalie Vartanian, who is the field deputy from Supervisor District 5, who has replaced Jason Maruka, who is scheduled to be a speaker last month. And since she's not scheduled this month, we just want to welcome her, say hello, give her a warm welcome, and chat with her about what we would like to have discussed in detail next month about the CARE program. All right, so first, public comment. Members of the public, Joanne Rivas, go ahead.
Hi, yeah, I just wanted to find out about the procedure of possibly becoming a stakeholder member of this committee. I find it fascinating, Tess. I think you do an outstanding job leading it, and I'd like to be a part of it if possible.
Great. Well, I think the procedure is simple in our bylaws. Just send me a request, and as long as your stakeholder status is valid, you're in.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're
I'll do
welcome.
that.
Any other comments from members of the public? Okay. Seeing none, hearing none, we move right along. And I welcome now our new Government Affairs Committee member, the young and excellent Logan Dalton, who emailed me, like a month or two ago with questions about the Environmental Committee. Logan, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, so Logan is a young man currently at UCLA. He attended Rio Vista Elementary School, was elected class president. I'm gonna let you talk a little bit about what you're studying now, Logan. And he sent me an email, I think about 2 months ago, to me and Susanna Hayes requesting information about the Environmental Committee, and seeing as how it was sort of disbanded, he sort of landed in my committee. Did Susanna Hayes ever respond to you, Logan?
No, I never received a word.
Well, in any case, you are here with our Government Affairs Committee, and Kelly Cole was a previous member of that Environmental Affairs Committee. And so perhaps if there's sufficient interest, we could revive it. But give us a little bit of your background, Logan.
Yes, so hi, my name is Logan Dalton. I'm currently a junior at UCLA. I'm studying environmental science at the Institute of the Environment and Sustainability. I have a focus right now. My concentration is in environmental systems and society. So that's basically, I'm taking a lot of coursework that involves studying public policy, the regulatory agencies involved in environmental policy, the history of environmental policy. But then there's also, like, I look specifically into several different kind of environmental science disciplines, like climate, pollution. So I'm learning a lot. I really enjoy it. I'm passionate about the environment. Yeah, so I guess I'm a club leader for like a water access club, and basically we at the college we just kind of discuss current events surrounding environmental injustice and water inequity situations across the state. I'm going to be talking about next quarter in the club, and it's really cool because it helps me kind of understand what's going on. I'm going to be talking about like the rewilding of the LA River, which is like led by the U.S. Army Corps. So that's pretty interesting.
Oh, that is cool.
Oh yeah, so feel free to ask me questions. I'll just be brief. Sorry, I was talking a little bit, but yeah, I do various things in research coursework, so I'm pretty much all about the environment.
Well, I'm hoping you can help us with some analysis of, gas and water rates and what's going on with all of that. That's one item on the agenda tonight. Welcome, Logan.
Yeah,
We're happy to have, fresh-
fellow Bruin here.
Yeah. Oh, very good, Kelly. I had no idea. Okay. So any questions from the committee for our grand young new member?
Just welcome aboard. That's fantastic. Thanks for reaching out.
So Jonathan, go ahead.
Thanks, Tess. Yeah, I think we're very happy to have you here, Logan, especially with a concentration on environmentalism. Tess, this is for you. If you wouldn't mind to send all of the committee members Logan, not now, of course, but Logan's email address.
Okay.
So that we'll be able to be have access to it. Okay.
Absolutely. So Logan, I noticed that you have a UCLA email address. So why don't you just drop me a line and let me know what contact information you'd like me to share? Okie doke.
Yeah. My UCLA email address.
Let's not mention it on the air, but so you want me to forward your UCLA address?
Yes.
Okay, very good. I will do that. Excellent. Any other questions? Okay, we do have a member of the public, Joanne Rivas. Do you have a question for Logan?
Welcome, Logan.
Thank you, Joanne. So Logan, some of this procedure may be new to you. We follow Robert's rules, Rosenberg's rules of order. If you ever have any questions, just speak up. You're brand new. Everybody will be welcoming, and I'd like to welcome you to put things on the agenda that you think are worth discussing, to take positions on, both at the city level, the county level, and the state level. We follow a lot of legislation here, and a lot of it will be interesting to you. And maybe it will, something jumps out at you, or an issue you read about, you want to bring it up. Let me know. There are certain timelines that we have to adhere to because of the Brown Act, but it's pretty much open season on legislation that we want to comment on or try to influence in one way or another. And it's kind of a cool and interesting process to get yourself acquainted with the sausage factory and how laws are made. So welcome to you. I want to now move on to an unscheduled guest, followed by, we're going to go with, let's see, Natalie Vartanian. Natalie, I want to welcome you. And let's see. I'm going to actually promote you to panelists so we can see you. Can you see us, Natalie? You want to unmute yourself. Very good.
Can you all hear me?
Natalie Vartanian is the field deputy for Supervisor District 5 with Catherine Barger. So as you know, I had invited Jason Maruka to speak to us a month or two ago, and he had to cancel at the last minute or postpone. It turns out he has moved over to become the legislative analyst for the Burbank Water and Power. And Natalie Vartanian is helping to sort of bridge the gap and bringing in a new field deputy for Supervisor District 5, David Dry. Is that his name, Natalie?
Yes.
Very good. So we don't have the item agendized for tonight that Jason was going to touch upon, but we can at least sort of get the scope of it defined now so that we can have you and or David back next month to fill us in. So Jonathan, you had a question? Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Tess, it was still up.
Okay.
The hand. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. So the item that we were going to discuss, Natalie, you may be familiar with it, was discussion of the LA County mental care health initiatives and how these affect our district. So while we're not going to go into detail about it tonight, that's the scope of the discussion we want to have with you. And if you want to ask us for clarification, or in what area, I'm interested in sort of the big picture of it, what's happening, how all the money is being spent. I noticed, for example, LASA, which is a joint agency between the county and the city, just hired a new CEO at a salary of $430,000 a year, which is huge. That's $200,000 a year more than the last director, the outgoing director, CEO. And members of the committee have specific questions about that we can put to you now and then have answered next month. That would be great. So any thoughts, suggestions, questions from the committee?
Do you mind if I make a couple comments?
Of course, go ahead, Natalie.
Thank you. And Tess, thank you so much for being so flexible. I
Oh, no problem.
really apologize for the confusion. I thought we were confirmed for the agenda, but that was on us. I'm not sure if David had a chance to join. I know he had a power outage, unfortunately.
Let's see.
So
Is he? I see 818 and a 452 phone number. Is that David?
let's see. That's not the phone number I have for him, but I'm not sure if he has the ability to unmute. I know he had some issues and he had a power outage, unfortunately. So last minute he wasn't able to join. But so I was temporarily filling in as Jason left our office, as you mentioned. David Dry is going to be the permanent field deputy as well as the legislative deputy for Supervisor Barger.
Okay.
And he will be covering these meetings. I did note last month from Jason that you wanted to hear about Care Court was one of the topics that I had on my radar.
Yes.
As well as some stuff about IMD exclusion and mental health beds.
Yes.
We can certainly add on some topics around homelessness that you just mentioned. The supervisor does also have specific policy deputies for mental health and another one for homeless. So
good. Well,
yeah,
maybe if you can let me know their names. I'm interfacing at the council district level with our new field deputy about vacancies in the tiny homes and what the occupancy rate is, how the turnover is, and things of that nature. So I can certainly sketch out a bit more detail for you and your respective deputies. Does anybody here on the committee have questions that we can have Natalie bring answers to next month? And Logan, Natalie is at the supervisor district level, representing over almost 10 million Angelinos. So you've got the city, then you've got the county and the state, and the county is huge. All right. I think it's one of the largest counties in the United States, isn't it? Yeah. So massive.
By population. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
by
the
population.
Supervisor has 2 million constituents. Overall, county has 10. Yes.
She has 2 million constituents, but the county has 10. Okay.
Yeah. So there's 5 because there's 5 board members. So they each have 2 million.
Oh, okay. Yes, I see what you mean. So, so Logan, just for your, reference, there's a county mental health care is largely a county initiative. So there's a huge amount of funding, lots of initiatives, lots of stuff going on. And we're trying to sort of unpack some of this to understand it, see where we can advocate that in ways that will be helpful to our district. So unless there are any questions, Natalie, you and I can work out a more specific couple of questions for the agenda for next month. Jonathan, you have questions? Go ahead.
Thank you. Natalie, thank you for coming. First of all, can you just help me understand what just got said? There's someone you mentioned is David, and I couldn't catch the last name, but who actually takes the place of Jason Maruka?
David Dry.
Great question. It is going to be David. I'm helping. Today's his second day in our office. I'm helping him in the transition, but next month your point person will be David. He'll be joining the meeting, and
Can you spell the last name?
Dry, D-R-Y.
D-R-Y. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
He will be your point person, and he is Jason's permanent.
Great. Thank you. Losing Jason is a tremendous loss. I worked tested with him a lot, and he's got big shoes to fill. Okay. And I'm sure Catherine Barger has made a good choice in order to fill this. I'm very fond of Catherine Barger. I've never met her personally, but I want you to know, and I hope you'll transfer the information back to her,
I will.
that her position toward the county sheriff's department and so forth, I was very, very supportive of. She stood alone. And I've been following how none of those people opposed to the previous sheriff have actually come forward and testified under oath. So I'm watching this. Most of Los Angeles isn't, but it is very significant how the cases are being dismissed one after the other. I did want to mention that. So I'm very, very thankful for Supervisor Barger has done for our community in standing up for law and order. What I also wanted to mention to you, and I hope you'll carry this back again to the supervisor, is that stakeholders are telling me endlessly that they see people living in our streets who are enjoying the freedom of accountability there. We see even the Cecil Hotel downtown remained vacant when there were rooms to fill because they were holding out for better accommodations that would have bathrooms on each room rather than a bathroom per floor. These are astounding stakeholders. We're completely in tune to the idea that the problem is one of medical necessity, that there are drug addicts running about that are being untreated, that there are psychoses out in the streets that are not being treated. This is what the stakeholders are wanting to see remedied. We are not seeing a shortage of beds. That's not what we're seeing. And this talk about a housing crisis, it's got people confused at worst, at best, and at worst, distrustful of what's going on. So I would appreciate if you'd carry that information back to the supervisor with a huge thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Any other comments? Kelly, Sean? All right. Well, yeah, there's certainly vacancies at the tiny homes in CD2. Some of them appear to be storm damage, but not entirely. So we'll have a lot to talk about next month, Natalie. You and I will be in touch for specific agenda items. Oh, we have a member of the public with a question.
Tess, should I
Go ahead.
Should I connect with you directly to introduce you to David and we'll talk
Of course.
on?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
We do have a member of the public. Go ahead, Joanne.
Hi, and welcome as the new rep. I just wanted to ask if there's any way we can get, maybe a list of the 501c3s that would help our community with mental health issues. I think that right now, with the way things are, it would be a great way to put some of our, some of the resources, the stakeholder resources to help, stakeholders who are having, really severe needs, whether it be housing issues or mental health issues. And I would really love to see us get more involved with other, 501c3s, other, and if that's possible, if we can kind of work towards that and kind of get a list going.
Does
Thank
such
you.
a list exist, Natalie?
I mean, internally, we definitely do keep lists. We have each of our field areas keeps lists of respective 501c3s in their areas. I could certainly take a look to see what we have as far as internal.
Okay.
lists.
Yeah, we'd love to know whatever you're able to share. We'd love to see it. Is that possible?
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. So with that, we will gently and lovingly dismiss you, unless, of course, you'd like to stay on. And you and I will be in touch about next month. All right.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you
everybody.
for coming on. Thank you, Natalie.
you.
All right. So I'm going to put your hand down, Joanne. Let's see. Okay. And here we go. All right. So I don't know how to lower hand. Good. There we go. So anyway, moving right along. Now, we had someone who I saw momentarily appear on our participants list who has since exited, who's going to give us an update about the airports. So if I see that person return, we'll go back to that. But in the meantime, we've got a couple of items here to talk about. Let's just go through them one at a time. Item number 6. discussion and possible action relative to the Southern California Gas Company's request to increase gas rates, application A.22-05-015. May I have a first?
Sean,
Thank you, Sean. Second?
Kelly,
Thank you, Kelly. Opening the matter for discussion. So there are public forums being held. One was yesterday. I intended to go, but something else came up, and there's another hearing on Wednesday, March 15th at 6 p.m. Of course, there's a tremendous outcry about rate increases. Maybe this is something that you are familiar with or can comment on, Logan. And there's the public advocate's office that we can contact or an independent consumer advocate within the California Public Utilities Commission that represents consumers, et cetera. So the Southern California Gas Company has made a proposal and a request to increase gas rates. And I know that stuff is through the roof. My cross the street neighbor, who is elderly and on a fixed income, has seen her monthly gas bill go up to $1,000. That's pretty crazy. And what I was doing was comparing rates from state to state and looking at, there's some consumer advocacy organizations that I am aware of. And I was just reviewing some of that before the meeting today. Do we have any discussion, comments, questions?
other than just the absurdity of how it skyrocketed out of nowhere for no particular reason.
Yeah, and if there's any,
I mean, I could tell you, my bill during
Yeah.
the summer averaged about $20. My winter, maybe 100. It went to $260, which is not a lot of money, but going from 100, what you expect in winter, to 260 is kind of obscene. And I've got tales from people all over the place saying that they have $1,000 gas bills, which they've never seen before.
Yeah, what's interesting to me is I turned on the heat once this year. I'm not, I'll put on an extra sweater and, I like a space heater because I have a fairly large place and it doesn't make sense to heat the whole place. It's just me, and I can't believe what I'm paying just to have the pilot lights on. It's
ridiculous.
I just paid $150 for not turning the gas on I can't believe it. Anyway, so
No good deed goes unpunished.
I know. All right. So Kelly, go ahead.
well, I actually was going to ask, thought maybe Logan would have some insight into this because some of what, and I haven't been following it that closely. I also have, I have like my usual gas bill this time of year for the last 3 years has been under $300. And the last two have been over 900.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So
And that's keeping it at 63 at night and 66 in the day.
That's what I do.
Yeah, exactly. But the reason I asked Logan, because I have read some things that I don't know if they're accurate, but that part of the reason that that the people who run our utilities did not hedge gas correctly so that we could have a big enough supply so that we could pay, rates that were the earlier lower rates, is because we don't have enough storage facilities, because we're not investing in natural gas infrastructure, because as a state, we want to move away from that. And that was part of the reason that that typically they would hedge. They would buy when it's low so that we'd have enough when it's higher, if it goes higher. But that didn't happen this year because there's no place to store it.
Do you have any comments on that, Logan?
If it's something you're aware of or not.
Yeah, I'm just going to preface that I haven't done very rigorous research into exactly like the gas company's responsibility in that. So I don't know the exact pathway of reasoning. I've also heard, which is interesting, I've heard different things about. I was surprised to read them requesting an increase in gas rates, because I thought I heard different things about maybe possible reimbursements because of the outcry. But I do need to do sufficient research to comment on them. What I can comment on is that yes, in a similar fashion, our bill went up And I do find what's interesting is that the bills did vary, just because I have neighbors that did different things, and this might be representative of the larger community, but depending on how people had heat, basically how they had heat allocated in their home would differentiate kind of how their bills came out. So we've had some neighbors that are more, their houses are more fitted to electrical heating, so they fell completely into or they leveraged their regular hybrid heating onto electric, and so that might have burdened electrical bills. And I wonder, because electric heating is usually more expensive than gas, and at least there are gas electric hybrid arrangements. So, but I think there's some people that had heard of the spike and they defaulted to electric. So I guess I'm interested in seeing some information on the change in, I guess, like the electric bill demographic. I feel like that's maybe
Logan, I want to share with you a couple things that I've looked up, and maybe you can help me dig deeper. But let me go first to Jonathan and then to Kelly. Did you take your hand down, or is it up again? Well, we'll go to Jonathan and then back to Kelly if we need
I'm
to.
done.
Okay, Jonathan, go ahead.
Thanks, Tess. I'm just going to put a couple things out there, but it's toward an end result that perhaps Logan might be willing, and Bob from the Plum Committee. It's Bob, okay, who offered to do a seminar, or however you call it, an instructional video on solar. Before I get to that, that's where I'm headed with this. But I wanted to tell you, I started my divorce from the gas company about 3 years ago. And that's when I ripped out my heating system for the cost of $9,000. I live in a single family home, so it wasn't cheap. And now it's probably even more money, but it can work also on a condominium, because now they have package units, which are the things that they call a heating air conditioning unit that sits on the roof for a condominium.
Jonathan, just for clarification,
Yep.
You ripped out your heating system at a cost of $9,000, or was
Yeah, but I live in a single family home, so I'm saying it's not cheap. Okay, it's not $5. All right.
Okay.
You rip it out and I put in a heat pump. A heat pump works entirely off of electric. At the same time, what applies, which was quite to my surprise in Los Angeles County, what took place in the rest of the state doesn't apply to Los Angeles County, which was that adoption of NEM3, net energy metering. Maybe I'm saying it wrong, but anyways, I think that's the correct term. In any case, it is completely disadvantageous for consumers. A theme that goes beyond, underneath all of this, is I've developed having read extensively, that one cannot trust what one hears from our utility companies. Huge profits are occurring as rates are going up and executives are receiving more and more compensation. So it really is an astounding situation. Nevertheless, what a homeowner can do, whether it be condo or a single family home, is get off of the gas and go to electric. And there's one thing more, even for boiling water. In Europe, I used to live in France for years. No one uses gas to boil water. Everyone puts water into it's a little electric, looks like a percolator of coffee, but it's only for water. That's just a standard way of heating your water, using electric, because gas is expensive in Europe. Now gas is expensive in the United States. It's cheaper to use electric because it's quicker. But moreover, with the addition of solar panels, and that's why I think maybe we should do more about solar, in order to make people more aware, because I think people in Los Angeles are confused now. They actually think they're under NEM3 and it's less advantageous. So Logan, perhaps you'd be interested in working with a fellow who knows quite a lot about solar in another committee, and we can connect you in order maybe to get some kind of he was willing to do a seminar. So it'd be interesting to do something like that. The last thing I'll say is something that Colorado did a long time ago. They're called solar panel farms. And because a condominium owner, for example, isn't allowed to put their solar panels on a roof, Colorado did something that California has been stalled for at least 10 years with, and it's manipulative because lobbyists don't want this to happen. And that's where it doesn't have to be near your home, but and this is where we could look for legislation and write some write some
CISs.
letters of action in order to compel some legislation to encourage it through City Hall, who can approach the state legislator through their state legislation program. In any case, it's where land, it doesn't have to be proximate to your home, like I said, is set aside for solar farms, and their homeowners or renters can have their solar panels located. And this is what Colorado's been doing, and probably several other states at this point, for years, but yet it doesn't happen in California. So we really are the victims of lobbyists in the sense of energy, who don't have consumers in their heart. Thank you.
Okay, interesting. That was a whole lot of salad, Jonathan.
Yeah.
So victim of lobbyists. By the way, I was at city council meeting yesterday to present our CISs on the municipal lobbying ordinance amendments, although unfortunately they cut off public comment. So Logan, did you, and before we'll get to Joanne in a minute, Logan, did you have any questions or thoughts on what Jonathan just said, and any interest in looking into this a little further?
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, yes, that's very interesting. If you, you'll have access to my email if you want to connect us, or feel free to send me any information. I'm always overzealous to read about opportunities. So that's great. I like what you shared. It's cool to hear the cultural differences around, electric and gas use cases. Yeah, solar, I guess I'll just mention really briefly, is like, solar takes up a lot of surface area. I actually haven't heard of that, which is really cool. The idea of, kind of dislocating the solar farm from the actual properties, but then still maintaining that link of ownership to the energy. I think that's great. I think there are definitely challenges, at least because we hear it all the time about how the valley is definitely overdeveloped, with automobile infrastructure and a lot of property development. We don't necessarily have a lot of available surface area outside of our property lines to create solar farms, at least maybe not in the San Fernando Valley or I mean, you might see that. You see a lot of solar farms up north. You see huge wind farms in Palm Springs, just because of the sprawl of those areas is very different. But yes, I mean, I think there's opportunities. I also, like, before I guess I speak on the efficacy of it, I would do some research, but more generally, we do just generally say that the surface area is definitely a factor, and then also the affordability is still quite restricted. So, in the same way that electric vehicles.
Let me just interject, Logan, to say that, the purpose of this, the neighborhood council system and this committee by extension, or by inclusion, is to serve as a grassroots voice for voter, residents, stakeholders. And you live in this area, so our goal is to do what's best for stakeholders. So, and that would be help me lower my gas bill. So if you can, come up with suggestions or recommendations or things that we should look at, or information that we should make available to the community, you never know what you'll find with some deep and heavy research, discounts that are available, things that we can do, how, make a recommendation to convert from gas to electric. All of those things are on the table. And, we're looking for smart people like you to help find the way. So I'll put you in touch with everyone on the committee. And if we want to develop a position or a statement, that would be great. And I will say, before we go to our public comment from Joanne, I'd love to get your help doing a rate comparison of other states, because I know rates are lower in other states, and this could very well be because of what Kelly said earlier, failure of California to hedge, buy when it's low and sell when it's hot, whatever. So that's something that we can work out and maybe present at a future meeting if you're available. Okay.
Of course, yeah, of course.
Very good. Joanne, a member of the public, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree a lot with what Kelly said, and I want to add to it, not to sound conspiracy theorist or anything like that, but there's been a lot of pushback about gas stoves on the news and stuff, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's some level of political pressure to get us to, go to electric. I'm glad now. I always liked having gas now, but by hearing these rates, I'm glad I don't have gas. But I think there may be a little element of, kind of like forced pressure to get people to reconsider going to electric. And I don't think that's fair, because we have too many people now that were just coming out of this pandemic of, trying to just keep their housing. A lot of people can't even afford their housing at this point. It's still a huge struggle. And if there is any kind of shenanigans or anything going on, even whether it's just an honest, not hedging correctly, it's not fair to the stakeholders. It's not fair to the people. And we really do need to get to the bottom of it and advocate for the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much there, Joanne. I will say that as I was researching this before the meeting, I came up with a bunch of interesting stuff from the National Association of State Utility Consumer Advocates. And there are, they're passing resolutions to advance equity and affordability in utility regulation. So I'll share one or two of those things with the committee and we can look at, because people are just being priced out. They can't afford it. So anyway, let's move on to our next topic and leave that. That was very good. Thank you. Let's see. Moving on to item number 7, that's sort of open.
I have a quick question. Were we supposed to vote on something? Because on the minutes, it shows
Yeah,
for a
you know
vote.
what? There was discussion and possible action, and I don't think we have an action yet other than a proposal, or that we research further and then develop an action.
Was there minutes from today's? Just out of curiosity, was there a minute from today's meeting, this public forum that was held?
That was yesterday. I don't know.
I'm sorry.
I haven't checked yet. I would be surprised if the minutes were available so quickly, but probably a recording. And there is another meeting of the hearing for the rate increase on March 15th, which I recommend everybody attend if they can. So unless we have an action to recommend now, which I don't believe we do, other than to continue research, we can move to the next item. All right, very good. So opening for discussion, the next item, which is basically legislation of possible interest to the committee and the community. And as I stated before, Logan, you're new to this, but anyone here, including members of the public and stakeholders, can suggest an issue or a piece of legislation, a bill that's going through the state assembly, which Ren has informed us now is the hot season for new legislation going into and coming out of the assembly and the state senate. And of course, we've always got a lot going on at city council. So this would be the moment to propose anything for next month, or you can certainly put something on the agenda pretty much any time up until about a week before the next meeting. Any suggestions or recommendations? All right, hearing none, seeing none for the moment, we'll move on to the next item. Number 8, discussion and possible motion to support official action in the Los Angeles City Council 23-0002-S19, put forward by Rodriguez, Krikorian, and Soto Martinez, to include in the city's 2023-24 federal legislative program and establish the city's position regarding legislation and administrative action which would condemn Azerbaijan's illegal and unprovoked attack on Armenian territory and call for other actions to result in diplomatic action to open the corridor and ensure safe passage between Armenia and Artsakh, humanitarian assistance and action against the regime in Azerbaijan. This motion would also be submitted as a separate CIS to Council File 23-0002-S19. Do I have a first?
Jonathan.
Jonathan, thank you. Do I have a second?
Kelly?
Thank you, Kelly. So I think the item speaks for itself. Any questions, suggestions? Go ahead, Jonathan.
Tess, maybe because this may not be fluent with other people. If I could give a little summary as to
Of course.
why does this even show up in Los Angeles? Okay, do you mind? Is that
Go
okay?
ahead.
Okay, I'll try to be as quick as I can so we don't make the meeting any longer than you have to. But without the information, people may not feel comfortable to vote for this. So the first thing I'd like to say is the reason this is on an agenda in Los Angeles City Council is Los Angeles with Glendale, which is not incorporated in Los Angeles, is the largest community outside of Armenia of Armenians. Many of us have very close friends or are Armenian here in Los Angeles. Next, where is Armenia? Okay, go to Athens, Greece. You go north up to Istanbul. Then you go 1,000 miles to the east, all the way through Turkey, to the eastern border of Turkey, is where you find the Armenian border. North of Armenia would be the Republic of Georgia. To the south is Iran. This matters, okay? And so now you know where Armenia is, to the east of Turkey. As you enter Armenia, if you pass all the way through this small country, on the east side of Armenia is the country called Azerbaijan, okay? Armenia and Azerbaijan have been at war. How did this come about? Well, when Stalin, back in 1920, set up remember, this was the Ottoman Empire before. The Ottoman Empire is dissolved at the end of World War I. So by 1920, Stalin is reorganizing the previous Ottoman Empire. So he sets up a bunch of an enclave of Armenian population inside of Azerbaijan. Okay, so now you have like an island of Armenian people inside Azerbaijan. Why did he do this? Because he wanted these republics to almost be at war with themselves so he could control them. Okay, it was a deliberate, manufactured conflagration that wouldn't go away. Okay, so here we are. Why do they not get along? Well, Armenia is Orthodox Eastern Christian. Azerbaijan is Muslim. So I don't need to explain or expound on that. There are cultural differences that are practically insurmountable. Why does it matter that Iran is there? Well, the question is, who is Armenia's friend? Our United States recently, Nancy Pelosi, for example, visited Armenia, but most of the assistance to Armenia from the United States is merely symbolic. Armenia doesn't have a lot of countries standing up for it right now. Azerbaijan, there was a war in 1994. Armenia won. The latest war in 2020, again, over this enclave called Artsakh for Armenia. It's called Nagorno-Karabakh to us. That's what we call it. These Armenians located inside Azerbaijan are under tremendous hostile influence from the Azerbaijanis. When Armenia won the war in 1994, there was a corridor in and out of that area inside Azerbaijan, connecting it with Armenia. After the recent war of 2020, Azerbaijan won. Why did they win? Because now Azerbaijan has lots of money flowing into it for the oil that they have, the petroleum products. And Europe is shifting off of the Russian and using more of Azerbaijan. So Azerbaijan has a lot of money and they're buying military armaments and they therefore won that war. As a result, those Armenians living in this enclave inside of Azerbaijan are subject to terrible treatment, human rights violations, as well as the consequences of war. So I'm talking about horrible things. I'm losing my video, so I'll turn it off for a second. In any case, this is a very dignified effort of our city council to take a stand, as they've done with other international conflicts involving human rights violations and the such, to take a stand to let our national leaders, because it is the federal government that establishes our foreign relations, to let them know that this is a matter of vital interest to us. And this is extremely important, in my opinion, to help support those Armenians who have been cut off from Armenia. There is no longer that corridor to Armenia, from Armenia to Artsakh, where the Armenians can get some respite from the troubles that they suffer in the middle of Azerbaijan. One last word. Oftentimes you hear the word Azerbaijan. The name of the country is actually the People's Republic, or people of Azerbaijan. That's the name of the country. You hear Azeri. Azeri is actually it was a term created by Stalin. I just looked this up to understand how to address the people. It may not be correct, but it is used standardly to call them Azeri. But Azerbaijan would be Azerbaijani, or Azerbaijan would be a more proper reference, because Stalin created that term Azeri in order to make the people who live in Azerbaijan identify less with those in Turkey. Remember, it was the Ottoman Empire before. Why does this matter? And this is the last point I'd like to leave you with, is the Armenian people, like the Jewish people, have suffered a horrific, they call it a genocide, whereas the Jewish people call it a Holocaust. In, I believe it was 1918, the end of World War I, where around 2 million Armenians were factually extinguished, or how do you say, liquidated by the Turks, by marching them to death, by shooting them or starving them to death. Turkey has never owned that, has never taken responsibility, unlike Germany did take responsibility for what it did to the Jewish people. So it's a very, very conflict. Why does it matter to us? Because of our population of Armenians, but more important, Turkey is a member of NATO. Standing with the Azeris, Azerbaijani people, is Russia. And Russia also has a treaty with Armenia, which it's called a Federation of Russian States. So it's a possibility, once again, of a conflict between Russia and a NATO member. And Armenia has no friends other than, call it for what it is, Iraq, and I won't get into that, but it's no friend to have. So Armenia needs all of the help that it can possibly get from a nation like the United States, which has a good track record for standing up for people who are oppressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Do we have any questions or comments from the committee? All right, member of the public, Joanne, go ahead.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything Jonathan just said. Armenia has, they've already been through a genocide, and the only thing that would prevent anything like that happening again is having allies, and they need that. And and I'm all for religious freedom and all that stuff. So whatever we can do to support Armenia, we really should. It's a human rights thing. Thanks.
Thank you, Joanne.
Tess, I forgot to give a disclosure.
Yes.
I am not Armenian. I have no financial interest whatsoever. I just have wonderful friendships with Armenian people. Thank you.
And so do I. Thank you. Kelly, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I agree with everything that Jonathan said, and I think that it's the right thing for us to support. I also would like to point out that Krikorian is our council member, and he's one of the sponsors, and that would be another reason.
Yeah, and that is, and that's not cynicism. I think that's important. And by the way, I was with him, I believe it was in 2018, when he planted the memorial pomegranate orchard in the North Hollywood Park. There's a nice little pomegranate orchard there, and I think the pomegranate is the national fruit of Armenia for various reasons. Really lovely. So Joanne, did you put your hand up again, or did you forget to put it down?
No, I'm sorry, I forgot to put it down. Doing it now.
Very good. So I agree with Jonathan on all of this, and I intend to vote yes, unless there's any more comment or questions. Can we move it to a vote? All right, seeing no objection, let us take it to a vote. Let me get my little tally scorecard here. Okay. All right. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Sean, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Ren, how do you vote?
Yes,
Jonathan?
Yes.
Logan?
Yes. Yeah, they have my full support. Yes.
Thank you. And I'm a yes, so it is a unanimous, motion carries. Well done, everybody. 6-0-0. All right. Moving right along to our next item. Number 9. Okay, let me just make sure I record this properly. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jonathan. Number 9, discussion and possible motion. Request for action to express concern at actions by the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment, otherwise known as DUN, in placing the Hollywood District Studios Neighborhood Council in exhaustive efforts. Before reading the rest of the motion, I will mention that circumstances have changed within the last week. This is Council File 19-0945. And since circumstances have changed, I will not read the remainder. I will not read the motion, but I will open for discussion. Do I have a first?
Kelly,
Thank you, Kelly. Do I have a second?
Jonathan?
Thank you, Jonathan. So you've seen this motion, which was to have been a request for action and a possible community impact statement, which, Logan, this is something that we do as a council if we want to append our opinion, our support or opposition or request to amend to a city council file that is open or pending. We do it by way of a community impact statement. So we discuss it at the committee level. If it's agreed to, then it gets bumped up to the board level and then we vote on it. And if the board agrees, then it becomes an official position of our council and we send it to the appropriate people, whether it's the council member, the entire city council, the mayor, etc. So in this case, for those who may not be aware, Raquel Beltran, the general manager of the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment, was very much embroiled in controversy a couple of weeks ago when the Hollywood one of the neighborhood councils, the Hollywood District Studios Neighborhood Council, rose up in anger at an instruction to take some of their funding, $4,000, and pay for an event that the neighborhood council did not support and did not wish to attend. So this resulted in a big sort of backlash, a lot of press, and the general manager was relieved of her position last Thursday, and therefore this item is somewhat moot now. However, we can still discuss possible action vis-a-vis the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment. I put in a call to the mayor's office today, and I'll share with you a little bit more about that in a moment. Kelly, you have your hand up.
well, I'd be very interested in hearing what you heard from the mayor's office. I was just going to say that this is moot because it's I don't think they need our support in the same, that council doesn't need our support in the same way after Raquel Beltran was let go. But I do think it would be great to consider writing something that asks for a meaningful, like not just business as usual. So not just, I think it matters very much to the neighborhood council system's health and vitality to have the right person in that position.
Yes.
And for that, and for the organization to have a review. I know that like there's some thoughts about auditing them, but also just an overall review, because my personal opinion is that DUN is a failed organization. I mean, we're over 20 years into the system, and the average Angelino doesn't know it exists, doesn't know we exist. So I think that there needs to be something meaningful, not just finding another executive to put in there or finding another bureaucrat to put in there, but finding somebody who, like, the right person to put in there, and to be very, very thoughtful and meaningful about how this is an opportunity, and I would hate to see it lost.
I agree.
I think we
agree.
should write something that sort of says, like, hey, could you guys take this seriously, please?
Well, here's that's we're thinking along the same lines, Kelly. And for your information, because you may not be privy to the neighborhood council email system anymore, the mayor's office just appointed Vanessa Serrano to serve as interim general manager until a new general manager is appointed. And this just came out 1 day ago. So, excuse me, I need to clear my throat. So I called the mayor's office today to ask if Mayor Karen Bass intends to appoint a new general manager herself, as her predecessor, Eric Garcetti, did, or if another process is contemplated, such as hiring a recruiter or by way of some other procedure. So when we know that, then we will know how and where to weigh in. I mean, at the present time, since the mayor appointed the interim general manager, it would seem logical to me that she will also appoint, as her predecessor did, the new general manager. And Logan, just to bring you up to speed, the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment is the city department that administrates and supports our neighborhood council system. There are 99 neighborhood councils in Los Angeles. It was established around 2000 or thereabouts, when the Valley threatened to secede from Los Angeles. And this was sort of the bone that they threw to the protesting peasants to keep us from seceding, and with a promise for greater grassroots representation. And there are debates as to how well the system is working. I personally think it has a lot of potential, but there's a lot left to be desired. And with the somewhat unexpected removal of the general manager last week, we now are, we're entering a new day, so to speak, with a new mayor, a new attitude, and a lot of people are very optimistic about, the future, but we certainly want to know what's going on. So, Kelly, did you want to add to that, or did you want to?
No, I would just say, so Logan knows it's called DONE, Department of Neighborhood Empowerment. It's also called Empower LA, which is what their preferred, they had historically preferred that. So if you see either one of those, it's the same organization.
Yeah, DONE, the acronym Department of Neighborhood Empowerment. So, and we interact a lot with DONE regarding rules and procedures and things like that. So, Jonathan, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Hold on. To move, I completely agree with what's just been said. So taking it to the next level, if Tess, you recounted the history behind it. If you look at the motion you wrote, and you don't need to read it yet because I'm not suggesting we pass it, but if you look at the motion, the first 5 lines are the history. You don't need to repeat it. That was what you already covered. So for everyone, the first 5 lines of the motion that Tess has written there is, I don't know if that is a motion actually, but anyways, that paragraph, on the 5th line, it starts with Greater Toluca Lake Neighborhood Council, GTLNC, calls on City Council and or its appropriate committees to review these actions by DONE. Okay, and then it starts up, and for the mayor. That's where we have to say, and for the mayor to do what? And you wrote to consider appropriate disciplinary action against DONE and its officers. Well, I'm not so certain that simply firing her I can't remember how to say her name, but in any case, it seems to me that their work isn't done, and we simply need to complete that sentence and turn it into a motion, because I've only been on the council for about a year now, and I mean it's not working right. I can see it just within our own council on how the relationship is. In any case, I completely agree that something needs to go out from us, and it's not even enough to simply fire someone at the top. That's like paying a top executive and saying you're compensating the whole company and they're happy. It's the reverse. It's getting rid of someone, but it isn't at all getting into the meat of the problem. So we need to finish this. This is important, I think.
Yeah, I would have to agree, although, and we may be able to come up with something tonight to discuss, agree on, and vote and pass. A little bit more time might be advisable, but we can discuss. Kelly, go ahead.
I would just say that I think we shouldn't come up with it tonight because I feel like it would be stronger for us. Like I would imagine, I don't know for sure, I can look into this, that there are several other neighborhood councils that are drafting similar CIS, right? So sometimes I think it's more effective if we all use similar language and just have to, like, it just seems like it's like, oh, look, there's 82 of the 99 agree with this kind of thing. Not that we're signing on to theirs, but that we have the same, it's similar. So I just think like maybe we take a beat and I can look into what some of the other boards are doing. And
that's certainly an idea. And I get agendas from a ton of other boards because I'm constantly looking at what other people are doing and how they're addressing problems and what problems and issues they address and how they do it. So I could go either way right now. Ren, do you have a thought? You've been around longer than anyone in the neighborhood council system.
I think it would take us a while to really come up with a set of recommendations about what to do about Dunn. Dunn is, from my perspective, is way off track. Initially, I remember when it was set up, the idea was that it would support the neighborhood councils and help them, reach out and create a base and create an input into the process. In fact, Dunn very quickly became sort of our policeman, if you will. They seemed to think their job was to direct us in how to handle the money and how to operate according to the law and so forth. But they didn't really help us on neighborhood issues and problems and how to deal with that. So I think Dunn needs a thorough, rehab. And I'm not sure we can in the next hour, put together a motion that would encompass, where we could encompass all the things that really need to be done. Are there other neighborhood councils at this point, Tess, that are researching this and coming up with sets of recommendations?
I'm sure there are, but I'm not aware of any specifically right now because it's just happened on Thursday, so it hasn't even been a week. But I'm in touch with a lot of, at least a dozen other neighborhood councils on a regular basis, if not more. So I agree with everything Ren said, and I don't want to rush into a motion that I don't think a month is going to hurt us in any way, and give us time to see how the dust settles. I'd like to get a response back from the mayor's office to see if, in fact, she does plan to appoint, as I would imagine she would, rather than another procedure or getting a recruiter in. Sean, did you have your hand up?
I did, but
Okay.
I was just going to kind of reiterate what Ren said and you said. I think at this point it's still too soon. I think we need to kind of see how everything kind of shakes out, and then lend our opinion. And like you said, maybe we wait to see what other neighborhood councils are saying. There are 99 of us, and I imagine the overwhelming majority of us are frustrated with how Dunn has kind of not done exactly what they're supposed to do, and kind of, as like Ren said, they're nowhere near what they were supposed to be doing. So
right. So I'm going to go to Joanne in a second, but a brief sort of summary for Logan. This has been sort of a criticism of Dunn from a number of neighborhood councils, that the organization that was supposed to support us has turned into one that polices us. But this is, I think, common among bureaucracies that they sort of spread and, and try to take as much territory as they can. So it is not uncommon, but we are, as a system, a citywide neighborhood council system, we're a pretty feisty bunch. And there's a lot of people who push back on this. So, Joanne, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a little bit more information that might prove helpful to really want you to, so I encourage you to get involved. I know other neighborhood councils are. It's not just that, they went into exhaustive efforts, that Dunn took over.
Hold on,
They couldn't-
Joanne. Logan doesn't know what exhaustive efforts are, and some people here may not know either. Exhaustive
That means when you
effort-
can't meet quorum. If you
Okay.
can't meet quorum.
Well, hold on. It's a little
Okay.
bit more than that. It's when exhaustive efforts is what a neighborhood council is placed in when they're having difficulty, running their own show, which may include not being able to make quorum, among other things, as I understand it. But go ahead, Joanne.
Yeah, with this case, they couldn't make quorum on a numerous occasions, so they turned it over for exhaustive efforts. And Dunn, the Dunn representative decided to put $4,000 of their money to some kind of sheriff's fund. And it's not just that, that they would not on their own support a police organization. That's part of it. But this police organization, this event was not even in their district. It was like in West Hollywood. So it would not be serving their community and their stakeholders. It was not anything. It was not a 501c3 or anything in their community. So it'd be like, Dunn making, Greater Toluca Lake, pay for something in West Hollywood. It's ridiculous. Or in Van Nuys. And so that's part of it. And then not only that, Dunn, they demanded that that they show up to the event. And if they did not show up to this event, which was not even in their area, their council district, then they would be kicked off the council.
So there was, in short, Logan, there was a lot of stuff done that the neighborhood council that they felt was so inappropriate that they resigned en masse. And that a lot of other neighborhood councils agreed was way over the line. So anyway, and I don't know that we need to go too deeply into the history with Logan, but was there anything else you wanted to add, Joanne?
Well, just that because it's so egregious. You're saying that they've taken on to policing us, but to demand, can you imagine if they came tomorrow and said, okay, everybody, this council district, you will have to pay $4,000 for an event in Van Nuys. And you have to go to it, or else you're going to be kicked off your council, and you lose your seat. That's beyond policing. I'm like, and so they collectively quit as a way to get the attention. If they, I think they feel, and they are going to be, I believe some of them are. They're going to be going to NoHo neighborhood. I think they're making it like they're going to different council districts to kind of explain. But this is so egregious. It's so beyond the pale to me. That Dunn would, and firing Beltran is not enough. There has to be some real reform. And I think all the council districts need to get together and say, you're not going to tell us, even if we're in exhaustive efforts, you still have to consult the, where they want to do the money. It's not fair. And it's not fair to give the money outside of their district.
Yeah, I think
it's not fair to demand their appearance at something or lose their council seat. It's beyond the pale.
I think we're in agreement on all of that. So then I would like to propose that we vote to, Jonathan, remind me, table or postpone?
If you're going to handle it in the next meeting, you could table it. If you
Okay.
want to I think you postpone it to a date that you choose.
Okay, let's postpone it till our next meeting, which would be, where's my calendar? Which would be Tuesday, April 4th. Yeah. Oh, are you waving at me or is that a 4, Ren?
I'm sorry, that was a 4.
Thank you very much. It looked like a flirtatious wave. All right, so then let's vote on whether or not to postpone it to April 4th. Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes,
Okay, yes, postpone. Let me just throw that in here. Jonathan, postpone, yes.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I shouldn't have predicted your vote for you. I apologize. Okay. Ren,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Logan,
Yes.
Kelly, Jonathan, Sean. Ren, did you say yes?
He did.
Okay, and I'm a yes. So we postpone until next Governmental Affairs Committee meeting, which will be Tuesday, April 4th. All right, very good. And Ren, since you've been around the longest, which is to say you have the legacy experience, perhaps you could email us a couple of bullet points of things that you'd like. I mean, I invite the entire committee to do that, but I'd be particularly interested in getting Ren's thoughts. And Joanne, you're certainly welcome to weigh in as well. And I will take all suggestions and draft something up for us to discuss and vote on next month. All right?
Okay.
Very good. So moving right along to our next item. And let's see here. Okay. Item number 10, discussion, possible action, and update on legal action to repeal EULA, also known as the Homelessness and Housing Solutions Tax and the Mansion Tax approved by voters in 2022. EULA imposes a new and additional transfer tax on real estate valued at more than $5 million on both residential and commercial real estate transactions occurring on or after April 1, 2023, and will remain in effect until repealed by the people of the city of Los Angeles. May I have a first?
Jonathan.
Ren. Okay. Second.
Jonathan.
Thank you, Jonathan. So, any discussion on the matter? I should say that a stakeholder brought this to us, and it's been floating back and forth on between the Plum and the Governmental Affairs Committee meeting. And I think that, there's pretty strong support for repealing this for reasons I can go into. Sean, why don't you go ahead?
I was just going to ask I haven't been able to attend the Plum meeting for scheduling, but maybe if you guys can maybe give a quick summary of what Plum was discussing and what their thoughts were. I don't know if that you or Ren could maybe come with.
Yeah,
something.
I mean, I think most of the committee, we didn't vote on it specifically, but most of the committee members support repeal of EULA. And Jonathan, do you want to elaborate?
Sure. I think the best way to understand this is just simply state why somebody would want EULA, let's call it EULA, and why somebody wouldn't want EULA. For people who wanted this, for the most part, they were deceived by the ballot. It's not unusual in California because ballots can often be written in very deceptive language. In this case, it was presented as a mansion tax against the wealthy. Okay, that's what people thought generally. They were voting against great wealth hoarding by really wealthy people. What it really is, so those people voted yes for it, as well as people who simply wanted the tax, okay? People who don't want it were people who now realize they were deceived, or people who never were in support of a transfer tax, in addition to all of the other taxes, on real estate that changes hands. So what a transfer tax is not a capital gains on your profit, but rather if you sell a house for $100,000, you pay a transfer tax based on your sales price, not on the fact that you only earned $10,000 in profit. That has nothing to do with a transfer tax. So there are capital gains owed to the federal and state. That's not what we're talking about. Here, this is a transfer tax. LA does have a city tax, by the way. It's also a transfer tax, but it's a exorbitantly expensive already, okay? Thousands of dollars on a typical house. Last time I saw it on a $500,000 home, it was between $2,000 and $3,000. It's even more now. I don't know what it is. So we're talking about a lot of money. This is an additional tax that's a transfer tax, and it's meant to raise money on every transaction. And what that means is for every store, every piece of real estate that transacts, there will be this tax on it. So what people didn't anticipate is that means even stores, even factories or places of business. So those additional costs are just going to be converted into additional costs for consumers. So that's the problem with this, is it really wasn't a mansion tax. In fact, it really wasn't at all a mansion tax. It was a real estate tax on all real estate. There's a few exemptions, but we don't have to get into it because they're minor in nature. That's it.
All right. Thank you for that summary. Is that all clear to you, Sean?
Well, no, I mean, I just was more concerned about what Plum discussed, because I know I kind of looked into this, but it is also based on sales of over $5 million, correct?
Yes.
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 Okay, yeah.
And it escalates, it gets bumped up at 10 million. Kelly, did you have a question? No. Joanne, go ahead.
Yes, if it was something that truly like the celebrities and the super wealthy, if it was falling on their shoulders, I would have zero problem with that. But it's not $5 million. You can, there's families that are just trying to get by, and with their, maybe putting their kids through college and squeaking out a decent living by having a small apartment complex, and they're not millionaires, and you can, 5 million really is not a lot of money with LA real estate. And so you're adding a burden on, on like everyday people. And like Jonathan said, with stores and anything else. So it is really important that we get rid of this, because it's hurting a lot. I think it's hurting more people who are, they like I said, they're doing something with their lives, and it's punishing them to fix a problem that, it's not the solution. So it needs to be repealed.
Okay.
I might add, if I may, in addition to the problems with how the money is collected, the legislation is not clear in how it's going to be spent. And I think that's, if this ever gets off the ground, that's going to be a second and major problem, is this money will start to accumulate, and it's just very nebulous about how that money is going to be handled, how it's going to be spent. Like who benefits and who doesn't. So it's very problematic. It was a badly written piece of legislation, and I remember I voted against it because I just, at the end there were a lot more questions than answers in that legislation, and I think that's part of the problem as well.
Well, I mean, I'll make my comments, and I have a general aversion to the way a lot of things are worded on ballots. And I go through those sample ballots very carefully, trying to understand what the hell I'm voting for before I vote. Going back to Kelly, you have your hand up?
Well, I just want to thank Ren for that clarification, because that to me is very problematic, that we don't, we don't know how the money's being spent, how that's being administered. I think is a really serious issue. And then the other thing I didn't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I learned that it also translates to transfers as well.
Yes,
like interspousal deeds and if parents are transferring to children and things like that, correct?
It's as of the Plum Committee, it wasn't exactly clear. Ren, when you transfer billions to your children, will that be taxed?
I think
how is that?
Again, I don't think the language was very specific in a lot of this, but the sense I got was the answer is yes. So if you were just to transfer your $4 million, $5 million home to your children, it would be taxed as if you'd sold it to someone.
So, I support a repeal. I think this is people playing with other people's money with complete impunity. And I don't want endless subsidies by the state or the government with no end in sight. I intensely dislike lack of transparency and clarity with regard to how money is being spent. I don't like this emphasis on dependency. This to me is a money grab of people's tax dollars and doesn't appear to me to, bear any relationship to the scope and scale of what it's supposed to. I will also note sort of well, never mind that, that's an aside. I think it goes against a fundamental equity to hold a certain income group of people sort of hostage to involuntarily subsidize another group of people without, in my opinion, any justification. So this is not, we want to help homelessness, but not write blank checks, especially when there's so much lack of transparency now. I think I might have mentioned earlier, the new LASA CEO just came on board with a salary of $430,000. And I find that that's really out of scale with what I believe a job of that nature should be. So, Jonathan, go ahead.
I think here, because it's a recall, the issue here at hand isn't so much what is the law, but the issue for each person to decide on whether they want to repeal it or not is to answer the question, was this the will of the people? And what I arrived at after looking at it, that's why I didn't study so much the details, as the confused presentation, the deceptive practices that were followed in order to compel people to vote for it. For example, calling it a mansion tax. People literally thought that it was a good idea to get the money from the wealthy when it simply isn't that at all. This is not a mansion tax. It isn't aimed at wealthy people. And moreover, it's actually hurting a county like Los Angeles, where we are interested in defending, because it drives wealthy people away. And as I said in the Plum meeting, I forget the statistic now, but it's 40% of the tax base of the collections and taxes in California is coming from those very ultra wealthy people. So, careful what you wish for those who did in fact vote because they thought it was a wealth tax. It's not. It's just, it was so fraudulent. It was so defective the way it was presented that I don't believe the voters knew what they were voting for. And secondly, it falls into the two categories in California to always pay attention to, and that is any votes that are directed against the wealthy and any vote that is directed at the school system, because California voters have a long-held tradition to always vote in support of taxing the wealthy and providing money for schools. And oftentimes the money that's directed at schools ends up in teacher salaries and not the students. So everything needs to be paid attention to. Thanks.
Thank you for that. So let's see. Do we have any other comments? Then I would propose that we move this to a vote. And I would suggest something as simple as this. The Greater Toluca Lake Neighborhood Council supports the repeal of the United to House LA, aka the EULA tax, also known as the Homeless and Housing Solution Tax and the Mansion Tax, and supports the Howard Jarvis lawsuit. So, any thoughts on that language?
I second that. If that was your motion, if you said I move that, then I would first it.
Then I will move that.
It seems pretty straightforward and simple.
Okay. Good. Let me.
I have a comment though.
Sure.
I'm not actually familiar with the Howard Jarvis take on this.
I think they're leading the charge to repeal it, and we could certainly leave that out.
I'd prefer to leave that out if you don't mind. We could jump on it later, once we get familiar with it. But
very prudent, Ren
Yeah, I
White.
agree with that. 'Cause we don't
Okay.
really know what that
So
is.
then I move that language of the motion. The Greater Toluca Lake Neighborhood Council supports the repeal of the United to House LA EULA tax, also known as the homelessness and housing solution tax and the mansion tax. How do you vote, Kelly?
Yes.
Okay.
Do we need a
Jonathan?
first and a
Oh,
second?
sorry, go ahead. Sorry, first.
Jonathan?
Thank you, Jonathan. Second.
Sean.
Thank you, Sean. All right. Kelly, you gave away your
Yeah.
your vote. Okay, Kelly, how do you vote?
Yes.
All right. Jonathan,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Logan,
Yes.
Ren,
Yes,
and I'm a yes. So it's unanimous. Aren't we a wonderfully collaborative committee? Very good. Motion passes, motion carries 6-0-0. Thank you, everybody. And I will get that to the general board. And so now what happens, Logan, since we've passed this, as you know, these items that we passed as a committee, including the Armenian support one, that goes to the general board for vote on the third Tuesday of the month. And if they approve it, then we've got ourselves an official position as a neighborhood council, which is cool, you know? All right, moving right along to our next item. Everybody is holding up all right? Yes, I hope. Okay, so discussion and possible action on item number 11, update on the municipal lobbying ordinance. Let's see, to date, 45 neighborhood councils representing stakeholders across every city council district have passed community impact statements demanding the advancement of the MLO, which has not undergone comprehensive reform since 1994. Twice before, in 2008 and 2016, recommendations from the Ethics Commission died without a vote by the City Council. Articles in the Los Angeles Times and the Los Angeles Daily News have highlighted the unprecedented campaign of by neighborhood councils in support of a robust and enforceable municipal lobbying ordinance, which closes loopholes and does not open the door to new ones. This motion also to be submitted as a separate CIS to Council File 22-0560. Do I have a first?
Kelly.
Kelly, thank you. Second.
Jonathan?
Ren, second. Thank you. So, I attended a committee meeting of the ad hoc government and rules committee meeting yesterday, where a whole bunch of neighborhood councils came forward to present their CISs, and we had a lot of public comments. So this is going back and forth between the, the lobbyist interests and essentially the neighborhood council interests, which are, of the ones that have submitted CISs, 45 are, strongly in favor of these amendments. And Logan, just to give you sort of a brief overview, there's a big push to limit the influence of lobbyists, or to at least make sure that it is disclosed. All right. Is this person providing testimony in front of this committee, in front of this body, in front of this board, paid or not? And there are loopholes in the municipal lobbying ordinance, which many of us seek to close, so that special interests are less able to manipulate the process and the outcome. Does that make sense? So any comments, questions, thoughts? I would actually move that we, Logan, you have a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you could elaborate on municipal. Is that is the scope of that? Is that like municipalities?
Yes, that's Los Angeles.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Oh, so that's kind of like, so that's like at the county level or city level?
That's the city level. Mhm.
City level. Okay.
So, Kelly, did you have a question? I would actually move that we postpone this until next month, because as things are developing, and I'd like to see how things from the meeting shake out, how yesterday's committee meeting shakes out. So I think it might be, I mean, we can always add support, but we've already filed 2 CISs in support of the proposed municipal lobbying ordinance amendment. So I don't think, given the set of circumstances that has occurred within the last week before or since I agendized this, I think I would move to postpone this also until next month's meeting. Any objection or comments on that? Ren, Jonathan?
I agree.
Okay,
I agree. And I think that since if we didn't already have
2,
something on paper, it
Yeah.
would be more of an issue, but we do, so.
Ren?
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree if we can be more specific and
Mhm.
and more supportive of the consensus in another month. This is not going to happen quickly. I
Mhm.
mean, it's been many years as this is banged around, and but I think if all of the neighborhood councils come together with a fairly comprehensive agreement on what we want
Mhm.
and what we expect, I think we could be pretty effective in making the city council finally adopt it.
Right. So, and I will say on that note that I've been really very pleasantly surprised and very pleased to work with people across many, many, many neighborhood councils on this. And I love the fact that this is common ground for people of all persuasions, all political persuasions. And it's very, very powerful and it's meaningful because, I think most people agree far more than they disagree, and they just didn't realize it. And this is one area where we all have pretty strong common interests, and it's been expressed in this outpouring of support for these amendments. So if I'm hearing correctly, Kelly, you're okay with postponing till next month. Jonathan, postpone.
Yes.
Ren, postpone. Sean, how do you feel?
Same thing. I'm completely
Logan?
okay with postponing.
Okay, so we unanimously postpone until next month. That's good. And as this is developing, and Logan, just so you know, when you look at the agenda and the minutes, I always put hyperlinks in so that you can click on the link and then you can read the council file and supporting documents. And it's kind of nice to go in there and poke around and see what people are doing and saying, and you'll get used to looking at the council file system. It's really interesting. And I link to related resources and supporting documents that, help to expound on the issue. So let me just make a note of our decision to postpone. And hang on here. I always have too many documents open. Sorry, guys. Okay. Postpone until next month. Unanimous. All right. So our next item, and I was expecting someone to give us some background on this who is not present, although I saw her at the beginning of the meeting. The status on Thursday, March 2nd, 2023, LA World Airports Board of Airport Commissioners meeting relative to the dangerous conditions, 24/7 noise, pollution from planes, expansion of flight paths at local airports. May I have a first?
Sean?
Sean, second?
Jonathan.
Ren,
Second, Ren. Okay, so in fact, I'm opening a discussion that will not really be a discussion.
well, I
Because-
have
okay.
a question.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
this is pretty broad. Are we? Is this primarily LAX, or is this
This was
include
actually
our Burbank Airport?
It was Van Nuys, all right, but there were actually 2 people who I was hoping were going to give us an update. One is much more familiar with Burbank and the other with Van Nuys. All right. And the problems that both airports are facing overlap, flight paths, and a lot of consumer complaints. The city of Los Angeles has sued the FAA, and I wanted to get a little bit of an update on that. So I just have sort of general knowledge about this, and this has been brought forward by stakeholders in my community, and I'm aware of in other communities. So I wanted to give the committee some background from people with deeper knowledge, because I haven't been able to investigate this as thoroughly as I would like, other than I know that it's been very problematic in our neighborhood. So that's the scope of it. Does that answer your question, Ren?
Yeah, we were very active trying to deal with Burbank. Actually, there were a couple of different periods where we went through a 2 or 3 year process of trying to get Burbank straightened out, and I think we actually had a pretty good effect. But let's keep this on the agenda.
Okay, good. Is there anything you'd like to add or specify for next month?
On this issue or
On this item, yes.
Not on this one.
Okay, but just to keep this on the agenda.
Yes.
All right. So yeah, I don't want to go too far afield with Van Nuys on the one hand. On the other hand, because of the similar, the similar issues, I feel like rather than reinventing the wheel, it's good to hear what people are doing that's working. All right, Jonathan, go ahead.
Thanks. I agree with what Ren just said, but I take it to the next level that the stakeholders care about what goes on in Burbank, and they're not happy at all with what's going on over their heads of their homes from Burbank. So I think we should hone in only on Burbank. In other words, I don't think we have the time or the capacity to be dealing with LAX, and it makes it, I've attended conversations, it makes it really confusing to understand the conversation when you have other airports in there. So
but hold on, Jonathan, just to clarify, there's no mention of LAX. It would have been Van Nuys, and some of that flight path, as I understand it, does affect our neighborhood, but go ahead.
It may, but I think we can live with something. What we get from Van Nuys is mostly helicopters of the police department and things like that. They're operating out of Van Nuys from what I understand. So maybe in that respect, the municipal helicopters are what drives people crazy. But what I would add is what's happened in Burbank, Ren was right. There was some really good work done years ago that brought Burbank under a level of control where they had to alternate their flight paths. I remember during the presidency of Mr. Trump, that though under the FAA, of course, is a federal agency, so it's a federal government, those regulations were relaxed. And my understanding was they were relaxed because it costs money, that these private companies like Southwest and FedEx had to spend more money in gasoline, not gasoline, whatever you call it, diesel, in order
gas.
Whatever. Okay. In any case, the situation in Burbank is it's beyond belief. You almost can't spend time outside of your home in the evening without stopping conversations. So enough said. I just think we really have to hone in on Burbank and only Van Nuys insofar as the city agencies' use, because they're the ones that are using that with the helicopters, and the police are in and out of Burbank. I don't believe that they use, I said it wrong, in and out of Van Nuys. So it's okay. Okay.
I have something to add to that, but Logan, did you not mention to me something about gas prices and the enormous amount being used by the military?
Not me.
No, Logan.
Yes, yeah, I was reading a book for coursework, a book from Amitav Ghosh, and he was discussing in one of the chapters about how the military is the largest consumer of all forms of gas. I was just saying that there's in little ways that are kind of unnoticeable, and then oftentimes noticeable. there are reductions in consumer gas to reroute fuel for military expenditures, and that's usually just like, even in peacetime and in casual military routines, they still use a lot of gas.
Mhm.
I mean that's a little tangential to I guess, because I mean I guess the noise pollution isn't exactly a I guess secondary characteristic of like unreasonable fuel use. But yeah, I mean that is something I feel that military policy is probably very much above the scope of the council, but I mean there are good discussions to be had.
Okay.
There are good discussions to be had about reductions or
Mhm.
inequities in gas.
Well, I mean, Logan, we can always write a letter to the Pentagon, but and
Yeah.
you may be right, and we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but what triggered that note in my head is you said something about jet fuel, that a huge amount of you mentioned some percentage to me about jet fuel, I think like 17% of our.
It was like 75% of their diesel goes into like afterburners in the jets, because their jets have the highest rate of consumption of fuel, because
Mhm.
their tankers. Well, their tankers don't use like jet fuel, but anyway, it's like their tankers use a lot, and their military vessels use a lot on the water, but their jets burn much more. But that's also just interesting. But I mean, I guess the important thing from that is that it just gives you a frame of reference for how little fuel individuals use, families use, and in general, just the consumer sphere. There's not a lot of
Yeah, I
gas.
thought that was fascinating, and that of course would have been more apropos for the earlier agenda item, but just because we're talking about jets. I learned from one of my colleagues who is very active in the Van Nuys Airport, consumer protection sphere, that there's a proposal. They want to build a helicopter port there, or expand the helicopter port. I'm trying to remember exactly what he said. And that there's a huge concern among residents there because helicopters apparently have a 30% higher rate of accidents. And so that really, really concerns people there. But we can postpone this or keep it on the agenda until until we can get someone here to talk to us about it, and I can bring a little bit more information forward that we can take action on if we choose. So with that, unless there are any further comments, I would like to move to so we're agreed to keep it on the agenda for now. Yes? All right.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
If you want it to be in the next meeting or later in this meeting, you would table it. If you want to postpone it, then you need to assign it a date.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me shall we table it?
Okay, that means you can only deal with it in the next meeting. And if you choose not to, you need to postpone it.
Let's postpone it until the next meeting.
That's
and
good.
then we can continue to, well, hold on a second. I mean, if we keep it on old business, right?
That's good.
That's
good.
I think then we don't have to keep coming up with dates, because it will keep it on the agenda until such time as
Perfect.
a relevant item should arise. Does that make sense?
Perfect.
All right. Everybody's happy. Good. So last but not least, any new business, future projects? And
yeah, actually, we don't have it on our agenda, but I think it belongs there going forward. The filling of the vacant council seats and the possible redistricting. There's a lot of conversation about
very
going back
good. Yes.
to the redistricting that got done and revisit all of that. and come up with new boundaries for the council districts.
Mhm.
And then on top of that, there's a serious move to increase the number of council people.
Yes, I
So
brought
I think
that
all of that,
forward. Yeah.
yeah,
mhm,
all that
okay.
needs to stay on our agenda for
Okay.
next month.
Very good. Thank you, Ren. Good one. So, yeah, there's a pretty hot race in CD6 now to replace Nuri Martinez. So anyway, so keep the item on the agenda, redistricting, filling vacant council seats, and increasing the number of council seats and council members. And just, Logan, so you're aware, we have 15 council members now in Los Angeles, each of them representing roughly 250,000 people. And there are a lot of folks, myself included, who think that's too many people for one council member. You know, we have a pretty good relationship with our council member, which is, it's good. And we've sort of worked hard to establish that. But one person representing 250,000 people it's a lot, you know. So thus the interest and the push to maybe double that number of council members at a minimum. So there's, you know, fewer people per council member. But of course, council members don't want to give up that kind of power. So it's going to be a little bit of a struggle. Jonathan, go ahead.
For new business.
Mhm.
Let's see, over the past couple of weeks, I've had to divert a lot of the energy that I normally invest in stakeholder interests into housekeeping for our neighborhood council. That means reading rules and regulations and bylaws and policies, because there's such disharmony over this banner project. What I come up with is, when the issue of reconsideration came up, that is reconsideration of a past motion that has passed. It looks like an honest mistake when the bylaws were being changed. We left it that in order to get a reconsideration on the agenda, certainly it has to be, I think there's a very short time frame to do that. I think it's the next meeting only. That's not the issue. The issue is that it needs to be approved. That's the problem, because the way our bylaws used to be is there was always someone to approve something before it went on the agenda. And that would have been the president, was the only person who had the ability to put something on the agenda. Now, as we all know, our bylaws now allow any two board members to put something on the agenda of the general meeting. So probably we ought to think about changing it, fixing it, because it's confusing right now. If someone wanted to make a reconsideration of a past motion, it has to be approved, but we have no idea who it's supposed to be approved by. That's number one. So it's under the reconsideration of our bylaws. The second thing that came up was the president wasn't certain if he had the authority to speak. He believed it was speaking for our neighborhood council in the example, for example, when a news outlet wanted to interview him. I think we have to fix our bylaws so that the president has confidence in knowing that he can speak in behalf of the neighborhood council's actions. In other words, as a reporter for what the neighborhood council is doing or has done, with freedom. I think that's something that's reasonable for a president to be able to do. So I think we ought to fix our bylaws to make it clear for the president that he has the authority to be interviewed by news outlets and so forth. Okay.
I have a comment on that, but before mine, let's go to Logan.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I guess as an extension of item 6, when we were talking about SoCal Gas, there are, I assume, I'm making an assumption that there are current and future projects oriented. I kind of found I found a conceptual fork, obviously, in dealing with this item in the future, and also in prospective research. You would have, for gas and electric being supplied, that's a utility policy, utility reform question. And then also, solar projects specifically, you have like the net metering, you have solar within properties. You also have distributed solar, like Jonathan was talking about, the distributed dislocated solar with, shared ownership. So there's all these different kinds of plans.
Mhm.
But just, I guess, for the sake of clarity, there are probably stakeholders who have, they are probably either employed in utility reform specifically, or like sustainable development. And solar would fall under sustainable development more because it's not a direct address to a supplied energy resource. So, in the future, if there's anyone who ever comes on, or if there are any off meeting communications or developments, there are definitely people that are focused in different areas, because I think they tackle the issue differently. Utilities reform approaches, for example, like LADWP directly, and that when addressing their rates directly involves obviously addressing their supply. But then, as Jonathan was talking about solar, that would involve looking into like indirect solutions in sustainable development. And resources could be put into either direction, into mitigating the rates in general. Both are ones, obviously, the utility reform is more short term, because you can we can see that can be voted on. But sustainable development is specifically in solar is like a very long term project, with some of that probably being outside of the scope, or I guess outside of like the temporal scope, because those things take a long time.
Let me just get you to pause for a moment, because that's a whole lot of salad. And let me just throw a couple things at you, Logan. I know you're a busy young man, but I encourage you to take on as much as you feel comfortable taking on. And whatever proposals you want to make, that you think we should discuss, again, keeping in mind that we want to do what benefits stakeholders would be good. And as a possible suggestion, it just occurred to me that if you even put together a list of resources that we could make available to stakeholders, for example, I put together a list of homeless resources that's very geo-specific to our area, our neighborhood council district, so that residents and people can look this up, and people who want to help folks who are in need and the homeless. There's very hyper local list of resources to which you can refer someone. So maybe they don't need to, live in a tent on the sidewalk. There's a shelter nearby, services for food and water and showers. So as an example of a resource that, basically I put it together for the neighborhood council, and you could do something similar as well. Or even a rate analysis, right? If you're considering going with X or Y, I think we'd have to make sure that, it's very sort of non-commercial. We're not promoting one over the other, but that we're making a recommendation based on this data. Ren, there wouldn't be any objection to that, would there? I mean, anything that benefits stakeholders, I think, is good, right?
Yeah, we'd have to be careful, as you mentioned. We wouldn't want to be sort of favoring one particular company over another. On the other hand, if you have just a summary of rates from different sources and all of that, I'm not sure
that would be very good.
problem.
Rate comparison, which is just hard data. So as a suggestion, Logan, Jonathan, did you have something to add?
Just simply that all-American phrase, the truth is always protected. So you can always speak the truth. Yeah,
very good. So Logan, those are just some suggestions. Going back to what you mentioned, Jonathan, I mean, I would suggest that you give a language draft of the bylaws language that you think needs to be updated. As far as the president being unsure of speaking on behalf of the neighborhood council, I don't think there's any question once we've committed to a statement like a CIS or a letter of action. And, to me, that's perfectly clear. But if you think further clarification is needed, go ahead.
Colby was correct. I went and read the bylaws, and it's not clear. In other words, Colby was uncertain because the bylaws say speak for the neighborhood council.
Mm-hmm.
It's arbitrary. What does speaking for the neighborhood council?
Well, to
no. I don't want to debate it with you. I'm just
no. I mean,
let me finish and then you speak.
Okay.
That the bylaws state speaking for. So we need to be clear that no one should be left in the position that they have to interpret something. Well, what does it mean to the right or to the left? That clearly we need the president or a designee to have the authority to report the actions taken or undergoing that are in process by the neighborhood council. That's all. Simple statement.
Well, go
like
ahead.
that,
I mean,
so
if
it's
you want
crystal
to,
clear.
if you want to provide that, updated
Yeah,
language, that's fine with me. It seems clear to me, but more clarity is.
No, it was clear to you, but I agree with Colby that it
Okay.
wasn't clear, and it could be clearer, just so
Okay.
that there isn't that, how people can question everything, and no president should be left in the position to have to figure it out like that. It should be crystal clear. Thanks.
Very good. Well, I mean, the reporter was calling in based upon the letter of action that we sent to Councilmember Krikorian, because I provided that as an underlying document when I appeared before City Council a couple
That's
of
not
weeks
what
ago.
all we're
Yeah.
talking about is that it
Oh.
wasn't clear for Colby, and
I
therefore-
understand.
Yeah,
I understand.
that's it.
Anyway, so with that, unless there's any further items on new business, I will adjourn the meeting at.
No.
Oh.
Wait. We had old business, and I'd like to bring something
Oh,
up.
sorry. I am so sorry. I thought we did that.
It's quite I have two things. First of all, it's a quick question that I
Mhm.
never have understood since I'm in the neighborhood council. Every place else I've ever been, when a person makes a motion,
Mhm.
that's the first. And the person making a motion says, "Do I have a second?"
Mhm.
Why are we doing a first and a second? I don't understand.
You know
that. Does
what?
anyone-
I have noticed that as well, Jonathan, and I think it's one person too many, but
It's
it's
a waste
been
of time if we don't need to do that. It
Okay.
takes up so much time.
You're right, but that's been the protocol. So out of an abundance of caution, I have followed that, procedure.
Can we explore that? Does anyone mind if we do things more efficiently? If it proves not necessary, that we just take seconds? It's so.
I'm all for efficiency.
I
Does
think
anyone
that's a great
object?
idea.
Okay. All right. The
Okay.
second thing is, because we spoke earlier to afford Ren a moment, I think
Mm-hmm.
in old business, it would be appropriate for Ren to, because it's not on the agenda, to make what's called a point of information. A point of information in parliamentary procedure is when a person has important information to share that is factual. So we're not having a discussion, but rather it affords Ren, to my understanding, an opportunity to say, to simply make a clarification of whatever it was that he wants. That's respectful, I believe, and polite. Is that okay, Ren?
Sure. And
Okay.
I think you
So
all
you would
heard my,
start-
you
Well,
you
I
all
just
heard
to
me
be
the first
respectful.
time. I'm not going to repeat what I said earlier, but
Well, I
I will
didn't
hold my
understand it.
comments of those kinds in the future to the end of the meeting if that's what needs to happen.
What I'm saying is, if you say, I have a point of order, you are, the chairperson is obligated to afford you time to make your statement. And it should be a qualified statement. In this case, it would be clarification of factual information that needs to be understood of, that changes the reality. That's all. Okay,
Well,
so
Jonathan, as a point of information, a point of order and a
I'm
point
sorry.
of
Yeah.
information are different.
point of
A
order.
Point of order.
It's a point of order. Right,
Okay,
right.
no. A point of order is when there's something that's interfering with the ability of the speaker or the body to move forward, such as a microphone isn't working or
That's
somebody
right.
has,
Okay.
okay.
Point of
So-
information, and then we have point of privilege, right? You're correct.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. So, Ren, would you like to repeat what you said earlier or leave
No.
it at, okay,
Everybody heard it.
okay,
Yeah.
very good. Well, it will be in the meeting minutes. And with that, unless we have any further old business, I will make sure that I forward Logan's email to everybody. And I will call this meeting to a close at 8:45 p.m. Thank you, everyone. I thought it was productive. All right. Have a good night.
Have a good night,
Good night.
everybody. Take
Thank
care.
you. Good night.
Welcome again, Logan.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Logan. Take care. And
See you
Logan,
again.
Logan, I just want to mention something to you. Actually, well, folks are here. that we do have to be aware of the Brown Act, and I'm going to share that with you in terms of serial meetings. So as an elected body, the neighborhood council is where we are obliged to uphold and follow the Brown Act, and that is open. It's transparent government. And one of the very important tenets of that is to avoid serial meetings so that all decisions that are made in public. In other words, if you call me and I call Ren and Ren calls Jonathan, and we speak to more than a quorum of other committee members in order to try to reach a decision that is outside of the public sphere, that's a violation. That is called a serial meeting. Or even if 3 or 4 of us met, in person, all of the decisions that we make need to be made in public and with full transparency. That's why it's important to get things onto the agenda in a timely manner so that there's a 72-hour window between the time that it is posted and the time of the meeting to give anybody who wishes to comment or to appear an ability to do so. Does that make sense? So I will send you a link to the Brown Act and to a summary so that you can, refresh yourself. And unless somebody has anything to add. All right, very good. So technically this meeting has now ended at 8:47 p.m. and Sean departed at 8:45. So thank you guys for being here.